Hello, and welcome to Book 4, Chapter 23 of You Should Be Reading. This week, I'd like to talk to you about The Chrysalids by John Wyndham. Now, I've read another John Wyndham book on this before, The Day of the Triffids. This book in particular, The Chrysalids, is one I read in high school, and I've wanted to come back to it for quite a while. So I ended up snagging a copy. This is one of the many, many reprints. It's got a fancy little psychedelic cover, so it's pretty cool. And it is very, very slim and very quick to read. It only took me a couple of days just reading it on my lunch breaks at work. There's only about 17 chapters in it. It's a fairly quick read. Now, the reason why I wanted to check it out was because I remembered it being a very interesting little sci-fi book. And lo and behold, reading it now as opposed to reading it when I was in high school, I have different opinions on it because people's opinions change. In particular, I just remembered it being this cool little sci-fi book back then. There wasn't a lot of things that I really paid much mind to. Reading it today, this past week, in light of a lot of recent events, what with the U.S. election, Trump getting in, and all of the increase and uptick in hate crimes that have been happening, and lots of violence and stuff going on down there, and people arguing one side over the other. I feel this book in particular has a lot to say. So if any of you out there are wondering, why should I read a book that was basically published, I believe it was back in 1955 was the copyright. 1955 by the estate of John Wyndham. So this was many, many years ago. Many, many years ago. Why does something that's well over 60 years ago, should it be something you should worry about now? Something you should pay attention to now? Because of what it has to say about hate in particular. It doesn't come right out and say it, but it definitely has a message in here on people and how they view other people who are different from them. Because what this book is about, it deals with a group of youngsters, mostly just one in particular, our main character, David Strom, Strom, who is the son of a man who founded this little community after the world has gone to nuclear hell and back. So you've got these big swaths of land that are irradiated and nobody can live on. And David's grandfather, the one who founded it, was a very religious man. And he believed, because of some of the only books who have survived, being one being the Bible, and the other being this other book that was written after nuclear holocaust happened, which had a definition of the true form of man in it, and that there's this whole religion that has grown up on keeping things pure. So any mutations that come about are considered deviations and offenses to God, and have to be destroyed. Or if they're people, they tend to be more or less sterilized and sent out into the waste to die. So yeah, as I said, there's a lot this book has to say between the lines about hate and religion as it applies to that. Now, the bad guys, quote unquote, in this particular book they do tend to be the ones that are the religious, the ones that are all about kill the mutants and their abominations, blah blah blah. Even if the only mutation that someone has, as is mentioned in this one, is a sixth toe, and that's it. There's absolutely nothing else wrong with them. Just they have an extra toe. But even though our main character is like, well, it's such a little toe, how could it be a problem? But nope, they're evil people. They have to be banished from society. God does not love them. But David, our young hero, he is not normal either. He is one of a small group of people in the area that have psychic abilities. They're able to communicate with their minds, think together, merge their thoughts into sort of a hive mind in a way. Um, and David's little sister, who gets born during the course of the book, and by the time she's 6, uh, ends up being a being one herself, a powerful, powerful psychic with powerful projection abilities. Uh, so much so that help comes from other psychics in a land far away. But I'm going to just leave that there um, because science fiction. So yeah, like they have to keep themselves hidden, and they're they don't see the people around them. They see them as themselves, like all the people that they've grown up with. They're they don't see them as much different. They just have these special mind communication abilities. That's it. But there's a lot to be said in between the lines. He doesn't come out and favor one side or the other. He doesn't wholly persecute the religion uh, people, the people that hold on to that purity and that religion. They don't. You don't come right out and persecute those who believe it. At most, I would say the persecution tends to come from the fact of those who believe it the most strongly, the most extremists of this religion tend to be looked down upon for that zealotry, for that hatred. But not everyone. I mean, David himself, our hero, uh, he sees some of the mutant people. Like he can't get over the fact that some of these people look the way they do. Um, he finds it revulsive because he's been brought up in this community that believes that, and it's ingrained. Um, and that's what I find most amazing about this book, that 60 years later, in the world we have today, that this book still has a lot to say about hatred, about religious zealotry, and about how you view your fellow man, whether they are different in look, different in belief, or whatnot. There's something to be said in here about finding that middle ground of uh, being being able to be communicative to them and be normal and coexist with each other. There's just something to be said for that. And the good guys, these psychic people from far away that come to rescue them, they are not they're not the savior, the beneficent, powerful people that you might think they are, because they look down on these people that are scrabbling out a living, these purists, uh, and the mutants that they cast off into the fringes of the world. These psychic people look at both these groups as being lumped into one. They're all savages because they can't think with each other. They can't communicate in those thoughts and such. So it's something that should definitely be given a read, because I think there's many people out there who could stand to read this book and get something from it, especially in light of recent events. But I don't want to spoil too much about it. It's very interesting, very well written. If you liked anything else by John Wyndham and haven't read this, you should like this. It's pretty decent book. I would give it. I don't really rate things on here, so I'm not going to. I'm not going to rate this. I was just about to, but I'm like, no, I don't really rate them. It's good. It's worth the read. If you don't want to buy it, go rent it from a library. I'm pretty sure they have a few copies of this. It's an older book. So yeah, that's going to be it for this episode of You Should Be Reading. As always, if you like what I'm doing, please give that like button a tap. Give that subscribe button a tap as well, if you haven't already, so you can be kept apprised of when I do new videos. Usually try to get at least one video a week, if not more. And throw a comment in the comment section. Have you read The Chrysalids by John Wyndham? Have you read anything else of his that you think I might be interested in? Already read Day of the Triffids, and I've got a recommendation on The Night of the Triffids, which is apparently a sequel to it. Not by John Wyndham, but by his estate, maybe? I don't know. I'll be checking into that sometime in the future. But yeah, do all that, and until next time, my friends, remember, you should be reading The Chrysalids by John Wyndham. And I'll see you next time.